the thing that we know about fear and anxiety is that our urge is to avoid. So fear is one of these things that our urge is to avoid, but the more we avoid, the more fearful we become. So learning to break that cycle that, okay, if this is actually not dangerous, if this is something that doesn't threaten my or anyone else's safety, I need to move towards that fear and do it over and over and over again so we get that exposure so that we're no longer afraid.
Hey everyone, it's Tamara Thompson with Broadcast Year Authority, and I have a great group of panelists. Hey everyone, welcome to the show today.
Hi there.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
And our next guest, Dr. Laurie Bruce, is a clinical psychologist, and she flew out from, where did you fly out from?
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. So happy to be here.
Well, I'm excited for the topic that we're actually going to dive into today because it's actually one of my favorite topics. Like the science of resilience on that side. And this show really focuses on talking to business owners and entrepreneurs. What are the things that you think that every business owner really needs to know about the science of resilience, really?
Sure. Well, I can start with what the research suggests is, or the definition of resilience. So resilience just really means our ability to adapt to and cope with difficult situations. So we know as business owners that we are going to have successes and we're going to have a lot of so-called failures. I don't love the word failure because I really truly believe that failures are just opportunities to learn and to grow. But as a business owner, we're going to inevitably have highs and lows. And we have to be able to stay in the game if we want to be successful in our business. So we have to have resilience. We have to have the ability to cope with and tolerate those difficult times, or we're just going to give up.
Can you tell me a little bit more? Like, is there a specific reason that you went into the field you went in, like your backstory? Do you have a resilient story yourself?
Sure. So I think most therapists, most counselors or therapists, if they're being truly honest, will admit that we partly went in the field to heal ourselves. So I have personally struggled with depression and anxiety throughout much of my life. And I was one of those rare individuals who actually knew what I wanted to do for a living, even at a pretty young age. I knew that I wanted to be a therapist forever. And so I knew that I wanted to find strategies to help me manage my depression and anxiety, and then I wanted to help others with that. So I've been a psychologist for 25 years now, and the type of training in psychotherapy that I have is a training that not only talks about how can we change our thoughts, our feelings, and behaviors, but it also really emphasizes acceptance-based and mindfulness-based strategies. How can I be okay with where I am? How can I love and embrace and accept myself and my reality? And I think for me, that was a real turning point. All of the work I had done, all of my personal work had been around, how can I change this? How can I get better? How can I improve? I'm not enough, so I always have to be working on figuring out how I can be enough. And that was a huge mindset shift for me when I learned, hey, there's this whole world of being present, noticing without judgment, allowing, accepting, and really fostering that self-compassion. And for me, that has been life-changing.
I'm really curious. You mentioned 25 years in psychotherapy. So what I'm curious about is, what have you noticed has shifted with your clients that come to you over these 25 years?
Great question. What I'm noticing, and I think the research really supports this, is that progressively folks are becoming increasingly more anxious than ever before. Of course, we've always had anxiety disorders and depression. But I think, and I'll certainly attribute this to the rise in having a cell phone with us at all times, having social media, the 24 hours news cycle. I think there are multiple factors that have contributed to the fact that we're seeing anxiety now more than ever. And a lot of our young folks are teenagers, especially. They just don't know how to cope with anxiety. So a lot of what I do is teach people coping skills to manage and to regulate their emotions so that they, at the very least, feel more empowered, feel more in charge, and feel more centered.
Dr. Laurie, I love that, first of all. And I love also your idea of acceptance without judgment. When we think about what we would constitute as a negative feeling or emotion like anxiety or depression, how do you kind of work your clients through, first of all, noticing that the emotion or the thought or the feeling is there, and then having the willingness to sit with it instead of shove it down or push it away or, create additional negativity as a result of hyperfocus?
Yeah, such a great question. I think when I'm teaching folks about emotions, learning how to identify what they're feeling, where they're feeling it in their body, all of mindfulness is about practicing noticing, observing without judgment. And so when we're talking about those negative feelings, so anger, frustration, jealousy, sadness, what I also try to teach folks is that every emotion has a reason for it. So if we're sad, that means that we've experienced a loss. You can't have sadness if you don't love. You have to love someone in order to feel the sense of sadness about losing them. If you're angry, that means that someone is violating your boundaries or trying to block you from getting something that you want. So anger is arising as a means of trying to motivate you to say, hey, stand up for yourself. Don't put yourself in this situation. So I think sometimes that cognitive reframe for clients of saying all emotions have a reason, have a value, have a benefit. So we don't need to judge them, but we can slowly learn how to observe them and manage them.
I was watching a video where it was an Olympic skater that she was feeling incredibly anxious right before she was going to go on. And she had to acknowledge that she was anxious to go on and have one of her best performances she's ever had. But she had to say, you're right, I am feeling anxious. And then is that part of regulating? Is that what regulating looks like? Just to say and acknowledge and have that awareness?
I would say that's the first step of regulation is identification. What is it that I'm feeling? How am I feeling it in my body? And then we can regulate it through a variety of different strategies. Some of them behavioral, like breathing and progressive muscle relaxation. A lot of it is also cognitive restructuring. I was joking before I came in here, like, oh, I'm really anxious. No, I'm not anxious. I'm excited. Exactly. So it feels the same in your body, but it's a different reframe.
I've had anxiety my entire life. I bite my nails. It's horrible. Don't judge. And it's just one of those things where even like I'm more the introvert in this partnership with Tamara. She's always been extroverted, likes to put herself on camera all the time, but I am just like, no, I can't do that. So it took a lot from me to be able to put myself in spaces like this. But what I'm noticing is that I acknowledge that I'm anxious, but I'm also excited. I'm excited.
Yeah.
But I'm also looking at it from the viewer perspective is we're having these incredible conversations about important things that matter. And so but I still deal with anxiety a lot.
Yeah. And I think you may, to a certain extent, I've recognized that I will always have anxiety. This is part of my temperament. It runs in my family. Like, I don't anticipate there will ever be a time in my life where I'm not experiencing anxiety. But for me, one of the most important lessons that I've learned in my life is that I never want fear to be the decision maker for me. I'm anxious, so that would mean I would live in my house all the time. I would never go anywhere, do anything, or connect with people. And that's not how I want to be. And it also limits my ability to give back to other people. So the idea is I can be anxious and still do it anyways.
How do you know when you have those periods in your gut, it just doesn't like, you're just not sure if you should be doing X, Y, Z. But what if it's just you being fearful fearful of it. And then if you did X, Y, and Z, it exponentially like increases your growth in your business, for example. Like, how do you tell the difference from it just being like that feeling of fear, whether you should do it or not?
Such a great question. I'll do my best to articulate how I try to share this with my clients. I talk about the concept of 3 states of mind, that we have our emotion mind, which is, I'm afraid, so I'm not going to do it. We have our logical mind, which says, if I do it, these will be the percentages of likelihood that it will be successful. But we also have this 3rd state of mind, which is what we call our wise mind. So we can call this our intuition, our inner wisdom, this part of us that is always moving towards growth and healing. And so sometimes it is very difficult to distinguish, is this my emotion mind, or is this my true inner wisdom telling me that this is not safe? And I think we're incorporating all aspects of, what are we feeling? What's the data say? What does my history say? And really, and even something deeper than that, something even beyond and spiritual. What might the universe be telling me? For some people, that might be, what is God telling me? Whatever words you want to use. Our wise mind is going to give us the direction that we need to go. And again, I also really, truly believe that even if our wise mind tells us to go in one direction and it supposedly doesn't work out, we've learned something from it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Dr. Laurie, I'd love to stay there for just a second. As you know, business owners, entrepreneurs, speed to decision is everything. And I'm curious, with the people that you've worked with, how do you help them understand that staying in that state of indecision, which is a decision in and of itself, as we all know, but staying in that state of indecision, creates consequences in business, in personal? We talk about resilience, and a lot of resilience is just being able to keep going. Oftentimes we stay too long in that state of unwillingness to make a decision, and we end up down a rabbit hole that kind of damages that resilience. So how do you kind of coach people through that, and kind of what is maybe one direction that you can give people that would be helpful when they're in that state of indecision, to kind of just take one small step forward?
Yes. I work with a lot of clients that struggle absolutely with indecision. That's almost why they're coming into therapy. Maybe they're at a turning point with their business, with their marriage, with their children. There are so many ways in which we can feel stuck in our lives. So I do say to the majority of my clients, not making a decision is making a decision. So I think that is crucial, that when we just sit and go through our minds and spin and spin and spin, that is a choice. I really encourage people to take the smallest step possible in one direction. What's the tiniest baby step? Do you remember the What About Bob?
Yes. So good.
Baby steps.
Yep.
Yes, there's a lot of truth in that. And I love that. But there's truth. What's a one small baby step that you could take that feels manageable to you? And then pause, and then listen, reflect, listen to your body, listen to that inner wisdom to see, did that make sense? What's the next baby step? What's the next baby step? And that's pretty much the way in which I try to encourage people when they're feeling stuck.
Do you think, is it primarily, is that the way that you see a lot of individuals obviously coming to you? Like, do the majority of them take baby steps? Like, I know my personality, right? I was talking about this on another episode about how, like, I see something and that's fearful and I just want to go do it because I want to tackle it, right? Like we were talking about, so we're signed up to go base jumping in Moab. And so, like I saw a viral video. I'm like, I want to do that. I'm going to hike 2 hours up the top of this mountain. I'm going to jump off, tandem and do this. Like, you're literally only there for like 2 minutes before you land, right? But it's like, but that adrenaline rush type of stuff, like, is that more of like, is that I see it because I'm like, oh, I'm fearful of it, so I want to do it. Like, do you work with individuals that do that? Like, what would you say to someone like that? Like, because I'm not a
risk taker.
I'm like a risk taker, and I don't believe in the baby step motion. But I do love What About Bob?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think you bring up a really great point about our temperaments.
Okay.
Some of us really actually are born enjoying that level of risk. They feel that adrenaline. They're more likely to take risks and get pleasure from risk taking. There are others of us, myself included.
You don't
who
want to
were
go
born.
base jumping?
I do not like risk.
I'll sign up with you.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
No, I was curious because I know that during my life decisions and the things that I went through, I was not a risk taker when I was younger. I was bullied. I was cornered in the locker room. I cried. I was very awkward. And there were other things that went into my life that allowed me to like take risks. And after these things I went through, one of them in December, I'll have 15 years sober. So that was one decision I went through, but all these resilient things happened while going through the sobriety tract, then starting a business and then things like that. And so everything started changing and shifting. So my whole mindset changed over the years, but I definitely wasn't a risk taker when I was a younger girl.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, it's also very possible that your temperament always has been one that's more geared towards risk, but for a phase of your life, a season of your life, that was stamped out of you and you learn not to do that. So maybe, I'm just theorizing.
Could it be from a controlling family member?
Go fish.
Yeah,
Go fish.
from all the experiences that you listed would absolutely stamp that out of us for a period of time. But obviously you've invested a lot in your growth and your recovery and your mental health. And through that, in a way, it's possible that you were reconnecting with that part of yourself that was always present.
She stresses me out because I'm not a huge risk taker. She's like, I have to balance her a little bit.
She is.
It doesn't have to be like
resilient.
this crazy.
You become extremely resilient by knowing me, though. Me, just like, let's go do this. You know, like let's go. Well, you've done skydiving and stuff like that, so Laurie's gonna come.
Oh my gosh!
Can I take you back to a question? You talked about fear and staying like, I don't want to allow fear to stop me from doing something.
Yeah.
And I see so many people stopped by fear.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a very fearful world. And I'm curious, especially for young people. I was a counselor for many years and worked a lot with teenagers, and I still have parents calling me, but I don't do that work anymore. And their children are so afraid, socially so afraid. Can you just offer some insight to how you can work with these young people to help them start making some moves to recognize that fear is like fear itself, right?
Yes.
You're just afraid of the fear.
Yes, that's exactly right. The thing that we know about fear and anxiety is that our urge is to avoid. And biologically, evolutionarily, that makes sense. If we see a bear and we feel fear, it's smart to avoid the bear. So that makes perfect sense. The problem is we live today in this day and age where there are so many things that are legitimately to be afraid of, but we're also getting a ton of messages that are suggesting we should be afraid of everything. So fear is one of these things that our urge is to avoid, but the more we avoid, the more fearful we become.
Yeah.
So learning to break that cycle that, okay, if this is actually not dangerous, if this is something that doesn't threaten my or anyone else's safety, I need to move towards that fear and do it over and over and over again so we get that exposure so that we're no longer afraid. But getting people to buy into that idea is really hard.
What do you think people have to give up in order to buy into? Do you see what I'm saying? Like there is something that they're going to have to give up, and there's a fear of giving something up. I'm curious if that's something you work with.
Yeah, well, it can be so many things. For some people, it can be giving up control. You know, if I make my life small enough, at least it's controlled. For some of it, it is the fear of other people's judgment. So we have to let go and give up the idea that somehow I need other people to think positively of me so that people pleasing stuff.
Yeah.
There's a ton of things that we have to let go of in order to be willing to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got a question on when we're thinking about fear, and you just kind of talked about how we've got like the real fear. I just stepped in the street and got run over by a car, but so many different pieces, there's so many different pieces today that are influencing the way that we're feeling on a day in, day out basis. If we're thinking about ourselves as business owners and entrepreneurs and realizing that in order to stay in the game, we've got to be resilient, I think about the physical side of this too. How do we mitigate those heightened levels of cortisol that we've got all the time from the additional fear and anxiety that comes from all the outside stressors?
Yeah, the physical piece is huge when it comes to burnout and lack of resilience. So we definitely want to work on things to help us regulate our nervous system. So learning different strategies. For me, that's mindfulness and meditation. For someone else, that might be exercise, running, moving, and strengthening their body. For other people, that might be more soothing types of activities, massage. There's 100 different ways that we can help slow down and regulate our nervous system, but that is essential because the high levels of those chronic stress hormones are going to not only make us feel miserable, but they're also going to put us at increased risk for a variety of diseases, inflammation, chronic pain, so many different things. So yeah, if we want to be successful in our businesses, we need to be physically, mentally, and emotionally resilient.
I love this. I love everything about resilience on this side. We're going to have you come back for a part 2.
Sounds great.
On that side. Could you share a little bit with our audience how they can connect with you, what you have going on, a little bit share with that today?
Sure. So if you're interested in learning more about mental health and mindfulness, you can listen to me on my podcast, which is called From Both Sides of the Couch. And I also have a website where you can learn more about me, reach my podcast, as well as reach out to me if you're interested in working with me, which is drlauriebruce.com.
Thank you, Laurie, for joining us today. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And those of you who are watching, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, listen to us over on Apple or Spotify, and be sure to leave us a review. And we'll see you in the next episode.